Dying Light on the Switch 2. Now, it's not a brand new upgrade, but I've seen a lot of you asking in the comments if the new hardware can give what is already an impressive port a bit of a boost. So let's find out. In this video, I'll break down exactly what the Switch 2's extra power brings to the experience. We'll be taking a look at a quick overview of the game, see how it stacks up visually compared to the Switch 1 version, check out those load times, and of course, see how it holds up when it comes to frame rate. And if you do have any more requests for older games to revisit on Switch 2, definitely let me know down in the comments. Before we do dive in, if you find this helpful, do me a favor, hit subscribe. This channel's been around for nearly 7 years now, covering everything Switch 1, and we're not slowing down with the Switch 2. Support a smaller channel and join me for the ride, because it really does help out. Let's start with a brief overview for those who may be new to Dying Light. This one's an open world action game set in the city of Harran. It's overrun by zombies after a viral outbreak. Now you're playing as Kyle Crane, an undercover operative sent in to retrieve critical data and help survivors, though I will say it's not long before you're caught between the city's factions and your own moral compass. Gameplay wise then, it's a mix of first person combat and parkour traversal. The city essentially is your playground. You're going to be leaping across rooftops, crafting weapons from whatever junk you can find, and doing your best to stay alive, especially when night falls and the infected become even more aggressive. It's really all about agility, timing, and using the environment to your advantage. The Switch version then finally of Dying Light includes the full base game as well as all previously released DLC, so you're getting the main story, sizable expansions, as well as various smaller content drops. So yeah, essentially it's a complete package, but if you do want to learn more, I did cover it on Switch 1 and I'll link that video in the pinned comments. Today though, we're here to see how the Switch 2 can push it even further. So look, if you saw my video on Kingdom Come running on Switch 2, I don't think Dying Light is quite the same night and day difference from a visual perspective. And that's not to say there isn't improvements here, far from it. In fact, it's just because I actually believe this was already one of the most impressive ports on Switch 1 from a graphical standpoint. So it makes sense that the new hardware doesn't quite, shine it up as nicely. Now I've got comparison footage on screen right now. And look, again, differences are noticeable. You're just gonna have to look a little harder for them. The first thing that jumped out to me though is just how much sharper everything looks. Textures, lighting, and shadows. There's a clear step up in overall clarity, and this sharpness really brings everything else up a level because all of that detail was already in the game. We just couldn't see it clearly on that old hardware. For example, in these shots, you can now easily make out the small text on boxes and equipment, like the labels on the medical packs. That's something that was already there, but it was blurred on Switch 1. So the difference basically is subtle but meaningful. In these cramped safe zones, it's now easier just to read what's on the shelf or see small props that were once blurry, but this is all world building. And what I found particularly impressive then is how this sharper image affects the zombies themselves. Up close, the details in their models just pops more. The grime, the blood, the little rips in their clothes. And from a distance, the Switch 2 cleans up a lot of the aliasing issues. On Switch 1, you'd see jagged edges and shimmering, especially on far-off zombies or rooftops, but on Switch 2, it's significantly cleaner and sharper. So overall, for visuals, it's not as dramatic as some other titles I've looked at, but it still gives Dying Light a much more polished feel, and yeah, I think that is appreciated. Then let's talk about the load times, and I've got an example on screen for you to check out. It's a dramatic improvement, honestly. Now, I do want to be fair and say that load times in Dying Light were already impressive. Once you're in the world, you're not often waiting around, but when load times or screens do appear, they've been cut down considerably. Perhaps the worst offender on Switch 1 was that initial loading into the game, which is what I'm actually showing you right now. On Switch 2, you can see we're already in. This opening load takes roughly 15 seconds on Switch 2 compared to around 40 seconds on Switch 1, and that is a pretty sizable difference. Now, performance, the big one, and it's an interesting one this. The history with Dying Light on Switch is that at launch it was definitely choppy, and there were some visual bugs too. But Techland put in the work, and over time, with patches, they got it to an impressively stable standards. On the Switch 1, for the most part now, you'll be getting pretty close to that 30 FPS mark, sometimes even hitting above it, but there are still locations in the latter half of the game that can send it down to the low 20s, especially at night at any time. I'd say their mid 20s is kind of the standard. I'd say that's the common frame rate you'll find. Well, I'm happy to say that on the Switch 2, it handles this one perfectly, both day and night, and I'm confident that's going to stand throughout the experience. It's really amazing what difference a boost in frame rate can make, because the experience now feels so much smoother and more responsive. In fact, it's really unique. I expected it to lock out at 30, but in fact, it's pushing quite a bit above this. I'd say relatively frequently. 30 FPS is definitely the consistent, let's say, but there are moments where you will go beyond. You'll see that in the footage on screen right now. But basically, I'm really impressed with what this new hardware can do to really boost this area. But honestly, Dying Light has never felt better. And yes, the frame rate is still fluctuating here, but I don't know, it works. It feels good. It feels really, really playable. So yeah, overall, Dying Light definitely benefits from the new hardware, but it's worth remembering that this was already an impressive port on Switch 1. So unlike, say, Kingdom Come, where the upgrade is a huge jump, this one's more about refining what was already there. Still, the improvements are clear. Visually, there's that sharper, cleaner image that really highlights the incredible detail packed into the world. Load times dramatically shorter, making those already brief pauses even easier to overlook. And then there's the performance. It's now just increased. It's better day or night. And it really does make it feel like a much more responsive and smoother experience overall. So yeah, like, it might not be the most dramatic transformation I've seen on the Switch 2, but for a game that was already a great portable experience, this is absolutely a welcome refinement. I'll leave some performance footage running in the background now if you want to see it in action, but let me know in the comments if there's another game you want me to check out on Switch 2. And of course, if you found this helpful, subscribe. Really does help support a smaller channel like mine. And yeah, I'll see you all on the next video. Cheers all. I ain't getting no rest. I ain't getting no rest, cause I'm going. I ain't getting no rest, cause I'm going. I ain't getting no rest. I ain't getting no rest. I ain't getting no rest, cause I'm going.